Today we are honored to be joined by one of the world's leading scholars in the field of artificial intelligence, Professor Toby Walsh, who has consistently emphasized the ethical and societal responsibility that comes with AI. Professor Walsh is visiting Korea to deliver a keynote speech at the Humanities for Change, Democracy, Human Rights, and Peace, held in Gwangju. Through his influential books, Machines That Think 2062, The World that AI Made, are most recently Faking It, he has offered a profound insight into how AI is shaping human society and the ethical implications it raises. He has also been at the forefront of international discussion on the regulation of autonomous weapons, data ethics, and governance in the age of generative AI. In today's interview, we hope to explore not only the future of AI technology, but also some of the critical ethical questions we may often overlooked. Professor Walsh, thank you very much for making time. Shall we begin?
Please.
Okay, so let's go very simple one, but very important one first.
Sure. I'm a professor of artificial intelligence at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, although originally I was born in the UK, where I went and studied my PhD at what at the time was the only department of artificial intelligence at a university in the world, Edinburgh University. I had a dream as a young boy. I read too much science fiction, and I read about a future that was full of intelligent computers and robots, and realized that that future was going to come. That future would come perhaps even in my own lifetime, and I could be someone who could help try and build that future. So I've spent the last 40 plus years following that dream. And what's really exciting today is that dream that I and my colleagues working in the field have had is starting to become true, that we are starting to have quite intelligent computers that can do lots of useful things. For the last 40 years that I've been working in the field, it really is exciting because we're seeing the ideas leave the laboratory, leave the university, and turn up in so many different parts of our lives and have such a profound impact upon almost every aspect of our lives. It's hard to think of a part of our lives that it won't touch. In education, in healthcare, in government, in business, and in the military. And so it's because it's having such a wide consequence, I think it's worth thinking carefully about how we do that in a responsible way, in a way that benefits all. This is a dual-use technology, that the same technology can be used for immense good as immense bad. And that's not something that's new. There were many other technologies that have dual use, but it is a fundamental characteristic of the technology that we're working on. As an example, we build AI computer vision algorithms that go into your autonomous car that can track pedestrians, they can track bicyclists, they can track other drivers and avoid collisions, avoid accidents, avoid people being killed in road traffic accidents. But those very same algorithms are being put into autonomous drones and being used to track combatants in the battlefield and not avoid killing them, but actually killing them. So it's the very same algorithms that can be used either to save lives or to take lives. That's a fundamental challenge we have as a field. And I think 20 or 30 years ago, there was a definite feeling that we should not over-regulate this area because that was going to stifle innovation. And I think there was some truth to that 20 or 30 years ago when the internet was being developed and we were starting to build all these digital technologies. But that's no longer the case. And indeed, there's very good argument now that we're seeing a concentration of power in the hands of a few tech companies, many of them in Silicon Valley or the Chinese equivalents, that indeed that's actually starting to stifle innovation, that if you look at various measures of innovation, the tech companies, they're building up monopolies, digital data monopolies, that is actually holding back progress, that there isn't, Google search hasn't improved very much in the last few years because they are a monopoly. There's no one can actually compete against them, and actually, there was serious attention, antitrust going through in the US to try and address those issues. So I think there's a growing realization, a growing appetite, and a growing necessity to regulate. And I certainly spend a lot of time now talking to politicians in many countries, and they're certainly waking up to the idea that if this is to be a public good, and it will be a great benefit to everyone, and AI will, if we're careful, be the same. It'll be ubiquitous technology that's available, that's improving the quality of everyone's lives. That's a great and really important question indeed. I wrote my last book, Faking It, to talk about this very question, because it's something that does worry me quite significantly, is that we are going to be, we're starting to be in a world of misinformation and disinformation. And it's so easy with AI, generative AI especially, to generate fake content, whether that be words or images or audio or video. And we're not really prepared for that sort of world because we believe the things that we see. And that used to be reasonable, because if you saw something, if you saw an image or you saw a video or you heard some audio, it was very difficult. It was prohibitively expensive and timely and costly to make that. I mean, you could, of course. People have been photoshopping and make fake photographs and fake videos ever since we invented photography. But it was quite hard to do. But now it's simple. It requires no expertise, requires no money. And you're starting to see the internet, for example, being flooded with this content. And it's impossible, because this content is so realistic to tell what is fake and what wasn't. There used to be, and there's other technologies coming along, like digital watermarking, where we can actually check the veracity of the content, that there is a stamp here that we can actually trace back to, yes, that was recorded by the BBC in Gaza, or that was recorded by CNN in Washington, and hasn't been digitally altered since. But I think, that's those technical fixes are only going to go some of the way. And indeed, much of it is going to require us to be better consumers of information. That's going to require, ultimately, education. We have to realize, we have to check, what is the provenance? Do we trust the person who's telling us this? And indeed, I think it's an opportunity for old-fashioned media, for the old-fashioned news organizations, who do take the time and effort and employ the journalists to check the facts and to check the sources, for us to return to those. That there was a time when we would go to the social media, and there was 1,000 voices we could find there. But many of those voices you can't trust. And so I think what's required is us, an education for all of us to be reminded of how we can trust sources, how we can trust the provenance of things, and for us to be more careful consumers of such things. And then the final and really important thing that I think we have to do is that we have to hold the platforms more accountable for the content that they provide. So there was, and this again was reasonable at the beginning days of the internet, in many countries, many jurisdictions, we don't hold the platforms accountable for the contents, not like the way that we hold media organizations. If the New York Times publish something that's untrue, then the regulator requires them, they have to publish a correction and they have to admit their fault. We don't hold social media platforms to that standard at all. And indeed, there are laws in the US and elsewhere which exclude them from the standards that we hold old-fashioned media to. But now they are media organizations. The largest media organization on the planet is Facebook. More people get their news from Facebook than anywhere else. And unfortunately, they're not actually being responsible for this. It's not that they can't afford to, they make great profits. And yet, if you look at it, if you look at, for example, the people that they employ to help check facts and remove content from their websites, the number of people they employ to do that has consistently gone down, despite the fact that they are more and more important in, for example, disseminating information about our elections, about our politics and so on. And so I think we have to hold these organizations to greater account. And, they do have the money, they do have the resources to be held account. It's just that we haven't actually demanded the same standards of them as we demand of old-fashioned media companies. Well, I should say it wasn't my prediction. 2062 would be the year that computers matched human intelligence. It was actually surveyed 300 of my colleagues, other experts around the world, and that was the average year that they suggested. So that was our collective intelligence as to what it has. And what's important about that year, I should point out there was this huge uncertainty as to when we might match human intelligence, partly because we don't have a very good understanding of human intelligence, so it's a difficult target to know where we're getting to. And we don't know what advances we need to make. We don't know things we need to discover to get there. So there's a huge variance in the answer as to when it will be. It's not going to happen, on August the 13th in 2062 at 3 p.m. We don't know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen, But I think what was interesting about this survey and about the answers of my colleagues was that none of them were saying it was going to take only 2 or 3 years. Most of them were saying it's going to take 20 or 30 or 40 years. But none of them were saying it was going to take 200 or 300 years. It's not that sort of scale, as far as we can tell, it's not that sort of scale of problem that's hundreds of years away or just a few years away. It's something that's going to happen in decades. It's going to happen almost certainly within this century, almost certainly within the lifetime of our children, and possibly, if we're lucky, in our own lifetimes. And I think that's actually quite important because it's going to have immense economic and other consequences. It's going to, if you think about it, it's going to transform the nature of work. It's almost impossible to think of a business that won't be affected by this. It's almost impossible to think of a government that's not going to be the way that we manage our society and govern our society is not going to be affected by it. It's going to affect the way that we educate ourselves. It's going to be affected the way that we fight wars. It's going to be, but it's also going to have much more profound impacts because it's also going to tell us something about ourselves. Because what was, as I said at the start, what was special about us was our intelligence. That's allowed us to be in charge of the planet and to do all the remarkable things that we've been able to do, to discover with science and technology and to engineer in the world. And we're going to have something that's smarter than us, almost certainly that's smarter than us. It would be, I think it would be terribly conceited to think that machines couldn't possibly exceed human intelligence. They already exceed human intelligence in narrow domains, in playing the game of Go, translating tweets from Korean into English, whatever, vary those narrow domains. And there's many reasons why they will exceed human intelligence in all the other domains. They won't be limited by their memory. As you get older, we become more forgetful. Computers never need to forget anything. They'll think much faster than us. We think at biological speeds in the tens of instructions a second. Computers think in the millions of instructions a second, so they think much faster than us. So there's many reasons they won't have the limitations that the human brain has. Our brain can't be any bigger. We wouldn't get out of the birth canal if our brain was any bigger. So, but computers can be much bigger. So there's many reasons to suppose that they will exceed human intelligence, and hopefully that will be quite an important, humbling moment for us as we realise that we're just the temporary guardians of this planet, but also equally a remarkable moment because maybe we'll be able to cure all the diseases on the planet. No one will need to die of cancer ever again because we'll work out how cancer works. And so there's great promise that it offers us in areas like healthcare, in areas like education. And so I suspect, though, it's one of those things that will creep up us on us slowly. I've already seen this with autonomous self-driving cars. Now, if you go to San Francisco or Austin or Singapore, there are places where already they're trialing autonomous taxis. But even if you buy a new car today, it's full of AI driving assistants that do the emergency braking, that do the lane following, that do the blind spot detection. And I've noticed, actually, perhaps I shouldn't be admitting this on camera, but I've noticed I'm driving less and the car is doing more and more of the driving for me. I'm not paying quite as much attention as I used to. And so I imagine I'll realize one day, oh, the car's doing all the driving now, I'm not driving anymore. It will have slowly arrived in our lives without us really noticing. The AI is slowly arriving into our cars without us really noticing, doing little bits here and there. And slowly we realize that we're not driving anymore. And I suspect that's going to be the same with artificial intelligence. We'll slowly realize that it's doing more and more things. It won't be, and then you'll look back and think, oh, yes, that happened 5 years ago.
Professor Walsh, thank you so much for the sharing of your insights with us today. So from the ethical challenges of autonomous systems to the role of AI in shaping democracy and the importance of treating AI as a public goods, your perspectives have given us a great deal to reflect on. As we stand on a crossroad between the innovation and the responsibility, and your voices continue to remind me and remind us that the future of AI is not a technological question, but a deeply human one. So we truly appreciate your time and thoughtful contribution. We look forward to following your work and welcome you back to Korea in your future.
I'd love to come back.
Thank you so much.